I've always wanted to do this. My mother saved Life magazines. I can tell you who shot every iconic photo there's ever been. And here I am in scenes that have happened before. I realize what these other photographers have gone through to get this. You can get killed out here. To be embedded, good or bad, these guys may save my life. I have been in Iraq for 3 weeks, and I've yet to get out of Baghdad. I've been trying to set up this embed with either Fallujah or Tikrit, and have been in contact with the PAOs and doing the emails, and I'm watching the bodies hanging from the bridge on Al Jazeera, and I shoot off one more email to a lieutenant in our Ramadi, and he responds, "Come on out." So I'm at Echo Company, and I meet Captain Royer, who brings me into his hooch. And we sit there, and he is feeling me out, up and down, trying to figure out who I am, which I didn't expect to happen. I thought I will be let to see exactly what he wants me to see. And instead, I'm welcome to everything. They didn't know what to do with me, and pretty much anything was fair game. They invited me along to anything I wanted to go see. There was nothing off limits. One incident when I first arrived, the first fatality that came in when I was there, one person said not to photograph a wounded Marine. I did, just to make the point that if I'm here, I'm embedded, everything's fair game. Otherwise, their efforts are lost in vain. I told them I was here for the good and the bad. We are eating together, walking next to each other, showering next to each other, smoking, drinking Cokes. I'm going through exactly what they're going through. I intended to be out there for maybe 3 or 4 days, and it turned into 2 weeks after the fighting started. The first night was a patrol, the second day was a raid, the third day was a cordon and knock, and then this firefight happened. All bets were off. They closed the road back to Baghdad, and I think I'm staying with these guys for a little. My first patrol with Echo Company, and it was in a sandstorm. The light had no shadows, a pink cast lit the afternoon. If I had ever thought what Vietnam must look like, I think maybe this captures it. They just walked through this crop, and it could have been a rice paddy from years ago. I cannot stand the sight of this photo. This girl breaks my heart. This is Tuesday during the firefight. So we're going house to house. This was the first house. A family came outside. The father and sons and brothers were placed against the wall, and this 6, 7-year-old girl climbed against the wall and hid beneath her father. But I hate this photo. It just breaks my heart. I have a 3-year-old daughter. Captain Royer says, I need to go out on an MSR, which is a marine supply route. Every day, pre-dawn, a platoon gets up. They literally walk 10, 12 miles out of camp along Nova, which parallels the Euphrates. It turns onto Gypsum and back onto Michigan, and that's the day. It could take 3 or 4 hours. If they find something and have to wait for the engineers to come out and blow it up, they're out there all day. The bravest Marine are these engineers that walk ahead of the platoon with mine-detecting instruments. They could be blown up on the spot if somebody was 50 feet away with a car door alarm. Somehow they come away pretty much unscathed. A shell would be discovered. Everyone would retreat. Other engineers would come in, bring out a little robot, which would drop C4 from a det cord. Later, it would explode. So I walk this third day of being with Echo Company with Lieutenant Robluski. We talk about everything. He's from New Jersey. We talk about Philadelphia. We somehow end up talking about fishing. We both love to fish. Neither of us have been to Colorado fishing and would love to get there. We just spend the day talking. We find 3 of these IEDs along the road. They're blown up. It's now afternoon. We passed through a bad section of Ramadi at the intersection of Gypsum and Nova, and he said to stay quite alert here. These people have not waved to us for days, and generally the kids come out and walk with us. Something's not right here. We end up walking back to Combat Outpost, and just before we get there, they find 2 claymore mines hanging between palm trees. We're exhausted and just want to get back in and have dinner, and we have to sit on the side of the road for an hour or so. We're throwing pebbles in the ditch, pretty much in silence. We get up, we leave uneventfully, start walking back to the combat outpost, and I photograph John and his radio operator walking down the street. The next day he'll be shot in the jaw and killed. He'll be one of 12 Marines from Echo Company to die. They all start running, and I am twice the age of these kids. Captain Royer's radio operator, he's hauling this radio on his back. Hopefully, I weigh as much as this kid in his radio, because I got to keep up with these guys. The radio operator's having a bit of trouble, and Captain Royer is just screaming at him, "Suck it up, find it in your belly. You have Marines being shot right now. Find it, just find it." I think my heart's going to pop, and I'm just trying to keep up with this kid. As long as I can keep up with this radio operator, I'm okay, because he's got a cord attached to Captain Royer's head. That's the first feeling of the firefight that became intense, when I could tell from Captain Royer this was really happening. Marines might be getting injured. I didn't think any Marines were dying at this point, but he is just screaming at this radio operator, "Find it in your stomach. Let's go. Keep up with me." We just ran forever. It is so loud. I cannot tell where the firing is coming from. I can hear bullets hitting the side of this house. I'm crouched below a window, protected. Jeremy Bennett is shooting at figures in the field behind this house. We're in this washroom. I just cannot believe I'm in the middle of a firefight. The roof that would be our home for the next 5 hours. When we first got on top, it was taking fire. The different Marines would cover each corner, each 5 corners, because it was an odd-shaped house, and take out the enemy in no uncertain fashion. It is very loud. You can literally hear bullets flying above us, hitting walls and tumbling. They sound like a bee, a very fast bee whipping above you. You look for comfort, you look for protection from these walls. Anything can happen, but you're playing the odds and sitting or standing or crouching behind one of these walls, and it's your best or only option. I learned that the Marines don't give warning shots. If they're going to shoot, they're going to shoot with purpose. They would bob up and down behind the walls, in parallel, shooting, one a machine gun, one an M16. And just to hear their conversation as they're firing. Is he carrying a weapon? Is it a kid? Is it a woman? Take him out. The firefight has ended. We're walking to the scene. The bodies are in the road. There's this live grenade. 2 Iraqis lay face up. Another one lies face down in an American flak jacket. Another's lying next to his taxi. This was the scene of the ambush. 8 Marines died right here when they were hit coming up the intersection of Gypsum and Nova, where Lieutenant Wróblewski and I walked yesterday. We're just looking at the scene, and this Marine, Eric Aon, gets in this Humvee that has about 24 bullet holes in its windshield and tries to get it going. He gets behind the windshield, and I start photographing this for a few seconds, and he gets out. It's an unusual feeling to take a photograph like this. You want to be there if something bad happens, if something good happens as a photographer, you want to be there to capture it. But what's sad is Eric died 3 days later. We had shown him the newspapers and the magazines that ran this photo, and he smiled. His friends kidded him that he was famous and so forth, but he was gone 3 days later at the same intersection, Gypsum and Nova. 20 minutes after making the photograph of Aon in the Humvee, this Marine walks in front of me with a body bag on his shoulder, and he gently placed the body in the back of the Humvee and walked away. I noticed this pair of glasses, and it's just got a little bit of blood on the one side, and it was one quick frame. It says more than I thought at the time. Private Jerebeck wore these glasses a few hours ago. That's the difficulty with being embedded, is I wanted to pick these glasses up and bring them home to his family. And I didn't. After the firefight, I asked Captain Royer if this was the worst firefight he'd ever been in, and he said, "This is the only firefight I'd ever been in." 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm kneeling behind Deuce. We heard gunfire. Captain Royer screamed to stand firm, so we all took a knee. I feel a tug on my arm. I was hit. I'm shot, and I'm telling you, it's a very personal moment, and a million thoughts go through your mind, ranging from, is the bullet in me? My wife is going to freak. I have a war wound. Do they give Purple Hearts to civilians? I look down, and it's a graze, and I keep staring at it, and the blood is black. It must have cauterized. At that point, more bullets were hitting the wall to our right, and we all dove in the ditch and spent the next 15-20 minutes crawling through mud and wet grass, and it was just horrible. This is probably the most scared I'd ever been. A few minutes into this, the captain screams, I'm hit in the head. I'm just thinking this is the end. When the leader of the group goes, it's all over. A few seconds later, he said, I'm okay, there's no hole. During this firefight, Deuce turned around, climbed on my back, and started firing his weapon off my back. And I'm thankful, but I don't know if he was using me as a platform or if he was just laying on me to cover me. We kept asking each other, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Are you okay? I'm fine. So we continued to slide through this muck, being cold, and this mud on the front half of me, and being grazed in the arm, which was no big deal, but it was a big deal, but it was not a big deal. And the Marine behind me screaming from his broken leg, and Deuce in front of me getting hit with shrapnel in his thigh, and the captain getting hit in the head, denting his helmet, and the smell, and just the smell of gunfire. Scared out of my pants. So the air support came, and that's when the battle pretty much ended. Cobras and Hueys circled overhead, taking passes at a tree line. The kids said the Iraqis do not care for the birds. Well, we got out of there, and we ran to another house, and finally made it to a cement wall with a translator, and we just collapsed. Sunday morning, Easter Sunday, and here they're having a service for 16 Marines. What an Easter for these parents and wives to remember. Everybody in the hangar bowed their head. There was no tears. I didn't see any tears, and I was surprised by that. I'm sure the weeping was done in private. I think these men have a different mindset than I know of. These guys were ready to go back out. I reached my limit at 2 weeks, and when I left, I couldn't believe they had another 8 more months. And I got back to Baghdad, and I don't think it hit me for a while. I don't think it has hit me yet. What those 2 weeks were, and what those 2 weeks mean to the parents and the families of the kids that aren't going to come back. I'm close to these guys. I don't know how I can't be close. These kids I've walked with have died now, and I can only imagine more will die while I'm here. These Marines were good kids. Very polite, very professional. And when I left, when I waited for my ride back to Baghdad, I couldn't believe how many of them came up and shook my hand and started calling me David instead of sir. I'm sure there were thousands of photos I missed out there, but I got a few.